And just in case you didn't have enough, Europe and You in 2007, snapshot of EU achievements. Let's go into a little bit more in detail in terms of the hidden roots then of the European Union and talk about some of the history and historical unification attempts in the past. I would put in Alexander the Great here as well. He moved his empire, so to speak, a little bit more towards the east, but anyway, he spearheaded a lot of this stuff as well. The Roman Republic and later the Roman Empire eventually splits up into the Western Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire. Keep an eye on the double-headed eagle there as well, by the way. And then we have the Merovingian dynasty, the Frankish Empire, later turned into the Carolingian Empire. This is the expansion then specifically during the Frankish Empire, as it were. Then we have the Holy Roman Empire. This is known as the First Reich. The double-headed eagle is back there. The First French Empire, or Napoleon's Empire, the eagle. Austro-Hungarian Empire, or House of Habsburg, comes up. The double-headed eagle is there again. The Second Reich, German Empire. You have National Socialism then. The Third Reich popping up on the scene, Nazi Germany. Then we have the United States of Europe, or the European Union, what I call the New Holy Roman Empire in that sense. And I put the inception date to 1923, around that time. We'll look at that more in detail later on. Let's see if we can get some audio on this as well, because I'm going to play a quick clip here as well. This is Jose Manuel Barroso, and just going to the European Commission themselves and see what they think about all this. What does all this mean? Sorry, let's go back. There we go. See if we can click on this.
Sometimes I like to compare the European Union as a creation to the organization of empires. The empires. And because we have the dimension of empires. But there is a great difference. The empires were usually made through force, with a center that was imposing a diktat, a will on the others. And now we have what some authors call the first non-imperial empire. We have, by dimension, 27 countries that freely decided to work together to pool their sovereignties, if you want to use that concept of sovereignty, and work together to add value. I believe it's a great construction, and we should be proud of it. At least we in the Commission are proud.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're very proud. Sounds lovely in one way at the end there, but at the same time, I think that they are, creating a kind of a European monoculture in that sense. He's talking about sovereignty here. This will obviously prove itself in history if it's true or not. But they're in one way eroding nationalities in that sense. If that's good or bad, that's up to you, obviously. But it's just interesting to hear what they say about it themselves. What the European Union is. And so who is, in that sense, Jose Manuel Barroso? He's a former head of actually the Maoist student. He was a student leader for the Maoists, rather, under the Portuguese Workers' Communist Party. Here he's talking to the cameras down there. Again, then the future EU Commission. We're talking about the revolutionary movement pretty much here in that sense. I mean, look at the symbolism here as well. Obviously, of the Communist Party in Portugal. The star again, the five-pointed star that we mentioned, talked about before. The hammer of industrialism or warfare, if you want to look at it that way. And the sickle of Saturn, or of death, Kronos. On the surface, I think we could say that the church, the Roman Church and communism are arch enemies in that sense. It might be ridiculous to claim that these two sides are on the same page. But I say that they're opposames. This is just a different mentality of how to implement the philosophy, pretty much. And even the founder of the International Pan-European Union that we'll look in a minute here, Count Richard Nicholas von Coudenhorf-Kalergi, believed in a more socialist Christian structure, very anti-consumerism. And he's basically behind the roots of the European Union himself. This is the guy right here. This is their symbol. Look at that more later. And according to him, the Pan-European Union, the International Pan-European Union, would encompass and extend a more flexible and competitive Austro-Hungaria, with English serve as the world language spoken by everyone in addition to his native tongue. He predicted that individualism and socialism would learn to cooperate instead of compete, and urged that capitalism and communism cross-fertilize each other, just as the Protestant Reformation had spurred the Catholic Church to regenerate itself. Schilling side note, EWPA, aka also known as the Red House Report. Adam Labor uncovered US military intelligence reports that stated that top Nazis secretly met at the Maison Rogue Hotel in Strasbourg, that's that again, on August 10th, 1944, knowing Germany was on the brink of military defeat, conspired to create a Fourth Reich, a pan-European economic empire based around the European Common Market, a European Common Market. Top Nazi industrialists were ordered by SS Obergruppenführer Dr. Scheid to set up front companies abroad and pose as democrats in order to achieve economic penetration and lay the foundation for the re-emergence of the Nazi Party. Oops. So what's the official version of the European Union? In the ruins after World War II, obviously, the idea is that the European Union emerged as a kind of from the ashes as a natural reaction. This is to prevent further carnage in the world, primarily on the European continent, that suffered the most from the world wars. But the most fundamental misconception about how the European Union came into being stems from the myth that this intellectual genesis emerged after the Second World War. All the essential ideas which lay behind the moves to unite Europe at the time had in fact been conceived in the 1920s, before the rise of Hitler. But officially then the world wars are the excuse, if you will, to create the European Union. Ideas on European unity, we don't have time to go into all of this. This is just to show you that pre-World War II ideas. Some more for you here, 31 leading up to the 40s, a little bit after or during World War II. We simply don't have time to go into that. The founding fathers of the European Union, some of them at least, Count Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi, as we talked about, Paul Hermé Spaak, Robert Schuman, Jean Monnet, Konrad Adenauer, Joseph Beck, Johann Wilhelm Buyen, and De Gasperi as well. Many of these were Roman Catholics, sometimes Jesuit-educated guys. They belonged to Christian Democrats or Christian social people's parties. Again, I'm not saying that that's bad or anything, I'm just pointing that fact out for you. Considering how strange it is with all the mixing of these kind of occult symbols that we've been looking at and these Christians, or so-called Christians, I don't know. Let's look at Kalergi a little bit more here. He's the son of an Austro-Hungarian count, educated at a Jesuit college in Kalksburg, Vienna. And Kalergis was a wealthy Cretan family. Comes up again there. Their roots tracing back to the Byzantine royalty via Venetian aristocracy. Oops. Founder of the Pan-European movement together with Archduke Otto von Habsburg. Joined a Masonic lodge in Vienna in the early 1920s, predicted that individualism and socialism, as we said before, would learn to kind of cooperate. Advocated a revival of Charlemagne's empire. He received the first annual Karls Prize Award, or Charlemagne Award, by the city of Aachen in Germany in 1950. He called for a European single currency 9 years before it even was discussed at the secret Bilderberg meeting in 1955. He proposed Ode to Joy as the anthem of the EU, was implemented 6 years later. And he has an interesting quote here that I want to read to you as well. The man of the future will be of mixed race. Today's races and classes will gradually disappear, owning the vanishing of space, time and prejudice. The Eurasian Negroid race of the future, similar in its appearance to the ancient Egyptians, will replace diversity of people with diversity of individuals. I'm not coming to this from a point of view of racism or preserving races or anything like that, but I'm just saying that it's interesting that he brings up the idea of the Egyptians, that we're going to look as the ancient Egyptians in that sense again. And also the fact that he's advocating a class-free society when at least his foundations, if you will, then are creating this kind of elite class, Euro elites I call them in that sense, that are living like princes off of the EU budget that everyone here, pays for if you're from Europe in that sense. So his ideas might have been they might have been mistaken and implemented in the wrong way. Who knows? But there you have it anyway. Freemason receiving the Karls Prize Award, Charlemagne Award.